What's going on, guys? It's RPG Zeke here, coming at you with another I almost messed up this video intro. Alright, let's get into it. So, if you're unfamiliar or don't know, or you haven't been playing as much, Bandai put out some feelers looking for updated ban or restricted card list stuff, right? They're looking for feedback. So, this video is kind of like an answer for that feedback. Keep in mind, these are my takeaways. The feedback post went up a bit ago now. I've read and combed through a lot of feedback, looking for reasons, explanations, all that other stuff. There are a lot of things the community has brought up that are good, and I'm going to tell you this right now. There's a lot of responses that are emotional and don't carry a sense of logic. And if you feel offended by that, please realize that you're probably giving an emotional response and not a logical one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep emotion out of this video, and we're just going to look at a couple of cards that don't really make sense now in the current format, or they've been running rampant for a while now in the BSS04 tournament, CB01 post-tournament scene. So let's get into it. First card up on the chopping block. Should be no surprise for many, I'm sure. Before we get into that, real quick. This video is not going to talk about prior bans. Axebiter, Obviraptor, all that stuff, Netherworld Depths. I am very much in a mindset of it's banned, it's been not touched for a very long time, just leave it banned. Even the limit for Volcanic Break, leave it alone. There's a lot of other cards now that kind of do the dance a little bit better that aren't super crazy, and I don't think bringing those cards back are really going to do anything other than upset the situation we have already. So yeah, let's get into it, but I'm not going to talk about prior ban list or restricted stuff. Just what we can do moving forward, to not reintroduce old calamities that kind of caused a lot of issues. So with that intro out of the way, let's get into it. First card up on the chopping block, Big Bang Energy. See why this card, if you do this, Star Dragons will be dead. No, let me explain, because I got some examples here, right? So, Big Bang Energy, it's a 4-cost, 2 reduction, so you can play it for 2. Let's read the card together, shall we? During this turn, all Star Dragon Spirit cards in your hand have a cost equal to your life total. Select one spirit, it gains 2000 BP during this turn. We're mainly talking about the main effect on this card. This card allows Star Dragons to play at a different cadence than the rest of the deck types. And the problem is, there's not really a way to get around it. Let me explain. So if you Big Bang all over this board, and you're just dropping a bunch of Star Dragons, Star Dragon, Star Dragon, Star Dragon, right? The problem here is you can set up for a couple of turns, play defensively, get your life smacked down. You can play a lot of Star Dragons for free, and in red, your main thing is drawing a bunch. Star Blessed draws in your color, Ancient draws in your color. You're looking for ascend targets. You can play a Nexus that allows you to draw on play. Volcanic Canyon, draw one, ditch one. Drawing is very much the other ethos of red, is just being able to have a good or decent hand size when you need it. Big Bang allows you to cheapen that out, and you can go, okay, I have all these cards in hand, now I'm ready to play the game. You can Big Bang, you can ascend onto multiple targets clearing the board with Ira, you can heal right after, you can go into Ira again to hit for 2. It allows for a lot of things you're just not having to really think about other than turn order, because it removes the resource we're all playing with, which is cores, right? So if there's something like that that changes the fundamentals of the game, and not in a good way, right? Like, this thing's been stomping around now in the top tier tournament scene for a while. For that reason, I would ban Big Bang Energy. And throughout this video, you're going to notice I'm not really caring about limits to 1. I think we've proven in our game type that limits to 1 don't really see play, because then they're just outdone by the next thing. A good example of that is Volcanic Break, right? Use the Soul Core, aim up to 6,000. It doesn't really matter, Like, at this point, I feel like we have other things that kind of have better removal, or removal on a body, Drought Dragon, hello, that also do a really good job for what they're going for. If Big Bang Energy is banned, to pivot, we get to see other plays that don't come up as much, or maybe they weren't used as much. You know, we've got this really pretty card that isn't seeing all that much play, right? Gray, Servant of Seagworm. And it doesn't cheapen the whole turn, it just does what it's intended to do. When summoned, if you spend the Soul Core as part of this spirit summoning cost, the next red spirit card with the Sen you summon, this turn will have a cost equal to your life total. There are so many checks and balances baked into this card. You need the Soul Core. So after you do a Nova heal, which uses your Soul Core, you're not really using this all that much. It's an Ancient Dragon. Ancient Dragon's whole thing right now is to be like they're not the powerhouses. If anything, you can look at a lot of other Ancient Dragons and they're typically the supporting character in the red archetype deck, depending on what you're building. So like this is the support to help get an Ascend out, which was, you know, BSS04's whole thing is ascends and targets and doing all this other stuff. This is something that would come up more if Big Bang was gone, because Big Bang makes the whole turn just become absolute animals let out of the zoo kind of thing. This allows just the things, the conditions, all the stuff that you've lined up, you can now bring Nova down and heal. After you Nova heal and you go back to 5 or whatever you're at for your healing little trick, that's it. Seagworm Gray is no longer like a big thing or a threat in that capacity. Sure, you might see the level 3 start proccing where you're just blowing up level 1 Nexuses. And I think that's all currently that needs to change in the red deck type. Yes, I said that. Big Bang Energy is the ban. None of this other stuff, these emotional responses around Nova, I hate Star Dragon's healing. Here's a couple things I'll spoon feed you for a second. Nova is the ticket card, the big branding dude for Battle Spirits right now. This card is not going to get touched or hit at all. I think we need to get off that horse for a second and just kind of realize this isn't the thing hurting you. The thing hurting you is Big Bang. Big Bang makes Nova difficult to deal with. Nova already has so many checks and balances built into itself to make sure those things are being handled correctly. You need the Soul Core. You have to ascend on something with Seagworm in name. You're allowed in a TCG to have these setups for big payoffs, so Nova's not a problem. It just isn't. Big Bang is the thing that allows that turn to become Nova into Ira, or Ira into Nova, and you're not paying for it. That's the thing. If Red doesn't set up, and their only setup is getting a Big Bang in hand and dropping the whole board, that's the problem. That is the issue. Ira 2, mechanically, not that bad. Ira can get played in a lot of other colors. The thing that keeps Ira in check is his cost. So if we don't look at Big Bang anymore, and we just assume that you're tucking 4 grays and that's the way you're trying to get this card down, Ira doesn't become as threatening of a board wipe anymore because you're having to play it at a slower cadence. There is a very rare chance where I can now get 2 of these down, unless I'm spending all my cores to do it. And at that point, if you have that many cores and you've set up that much and dominated as a red player, then there's probably something else going on in your deck list you probably have to reconsider, and those kind of things are going to happen. That's just the way of the game. You're going to have to move cards in and out. But again, I don't think Ira's getting touched. It's a champ card. It's been printed way too many times. There's another print of it coming in the Bandai Card Fest portfolio. Ira's not going to get touched, so it's unrealistic. Also, from a game design perspective, I don't view Ira as a problem. I just don't. Like, that's just all there is to it. The card that enables Star Dragons to run so rampant is Big Bang. Like, it just is what it is, you know? Okay, so that's that. And then the last feedback I'm going to give, I'm not going to talk about Star Blessed Draw, but I'm going to say this. If the thing with Star Blessed Draw is we're getting freaked out with a Wind Summon to draw 2 or 4 cards because it's in red and that's kind of Red's thing, okay. Find other ways to draw, because we now finally started getting that in BSS 05, and I have a strong feeling drawing will kind of become a thing more often in other archetypes or on bodies of spirits. So look into that. I mean, now I'm currently building decks with no Star Blessed. Like, I haven't been running Star Blessed for a while now. So it's out there. Like, you can do it, and you can draw a lot. It's kind of gross. So definitely look into that as feedback. The other card I want to talk about that I saw sentiment around was this Nebula Dragon Andromeda. The big thing that's scaring people is when summon, select one of your opponent's spirits with 3,000 or fewer BP, and then or one of their nexuses, or one of their nexuses and destroy it. Big Bang allowed that card to become a problem because you could Big Bang, drop 3 of these guys, blow up a whole bunch of nexuses, not pay anything other than the Big Bang cost. Sure, you had a Star Blessed set. Go ahead, draw your 2, whatever you're going to do to counteract that. But the other thing too, and that's more to the point, is Big Bang has made it so our burst cards haven't been used to a good amount. You know what I mean? So like, if we're going to Big Bang and we're going to counter sword something, or we're going to Big Bang and we're going to do whatever has a win summon effect, we're going to exhaust Nexus, we're going to reduce some BPs, whatever. It doesn't really matter if I can go, okay, like that thing got bounced to deck, big deal. Okay, I'll drop another. I'll drop another. I'll drop another one. I'll drop another one. You know, oh, he's an ancient dragon, so ignore that. But you get my point. This thing's still in effect, so even if you did something with a win summon, your one thing to do, you're not slowing it down enough. This is the problem. Point said. Back on Nebula for a hot moment. Nothing's going to happen with this card, guys. No one's going to ban it. No one's going to limit this to 1. This is the biggest emotional response I've ever seen to a card. This card is in the starter deck. Okay, they're not doing anything with a starter deck card until there's a new red starter that takes over, and that becomes even crazier, or if people are really still complaining about this, sure, whatever, we'll ban it, big deal. But right now this card is like, should not be a problem to most. Again, the thing you've been scared of, or that's been really annoying, is Big Bang energy. And to hold my tongue for a minute, the whole +1, -1 conversation that a lot of people talk about. When you bring a body down, you have a reduction, and you take away from theirs on the summon. Now they have maybe a body they don't have, or maybe they don't have a nexus they were banking on for reduction. There's a lot of ways to play this game. I do not understand why losing a nexus out of all the other cards just because you invested that one turn 1 or turn 2, why that becomes a problem. Becomes a problem when this comes back out. Because now your setup is way behind, and this enables them to get ahead even more, because now they have a reduction they can pay 3 for this. That's all I'm saying. My conversation or discussion over Star Dragons in Red is over. We're going to move on to other things. And again, if a lot of people are getting offended or whatever the case is, I get it. It's emotional. We like this game. There's not going to be clarity to every answer. So I'm with you on that, but that's why I'm trying to give you some feedback on some stuff and the reason certain things are just so wild. So yeah, Big Bang energy, ban it. No, not even a limit to 1, just ban it. Moving on, some other quick ones before we get to the other big color culprit. No one saw this one coming. And Strike Back, baby! I'm looking for a ban on this card. Why do you want a ban on this card? It doesn't do anything. Oh, it's ant tokens! Let me help you. I want a ban on this card for something so simple, and it wasn't even brought to my attention until like the other week or two. Keep in mind, I don't play against green all that much, and I haven't lost to green aggro. So like, but also I've never seen this card like held, you know what I mean? Like I don't have this in any of my decks. And when someone brought it to my attention, I was like, that should get banned for just how it's written. Let me explain. Ant Strike Back, how does it read? Burst. When opponent destroys your spirit, activate this card's main effect without paying its cost. Main effect. Summon 2 of your Ant-Man tokens, blah, blah, blah. You get it. You're able to drop 2 Ant-Man tokens. Green aggro has become a thing, right? We're all kind of aware of it. They get cores. They're able to core. They're able to use this card, whatever it might be. The only reason I want this banned, which I understand it might affect green aggro and reel it back in, because again, like I don't play against it, haven't lost to it, haven't seen it take off, whatever, right? With this, it's because of the burst effect. The way it is written, there is no other card like this. For it being out of scope in design, that alone makes me want to ban it. Zeeg, what do you mean? What do you mean out of scope? I got you. So activate this card's main effect without paying its cost. There is no other burst card that has a simple tag when opponent destroys your spirit. I get it. The whole thing is you've been hit. The ants get to strike back now. You get 2 tokens. The fact it's not broken up. If the burst itself was summoned to main whatever, and then there was something written under it for main or flash, and it was like, oh, also ramp a core onto every one of your Ant-Man tokens. Sure, I could probably shy away from this card and say not a big deal till I see Ant-Man tokens come back and start taking over every tournament scene. I want this banned simply for the way it's written. Activate this card's main effect without paying its cost. It only has one effect. It's an easy tag, you're able to proc it, you can drop 2 bodies. Okay? That's it. Not a big discussion to have here. It's the only card written like this. Somebody's gonna come out there and be like, in the comments, but Whirlpool Nexus! It's a harder of a tag, it's a win summoned, and it's a Nexus. It's not gunning for you the next turn or even on that same turn when things are happening, right? Slowing down the aggressive play, getting things in line for how stuff is printed. This is from BSS02. This totally went under my radar. I didn't even know it was written like this. I always assumed it was burst, drop a token, pay another, cost, get a second token. It puts a cost on the player for deciding to burst and deciding to do that turn This does not do either one of those. So this is just gain 100% and don't worry about cost, baby girl. I've got you. Put that in the burst window. Great. Ban this card. Moving on. The next one that people probably didn't think I was going to talk about, considering I do like to play white quite a bit. Let's look at it. What's he about to drop? It could be anything. Is it Tiger? No, it's Valkyrie Mist. Surprise, surprise. Why do you want to ban this card? It's part of the Android Ice Princess set. Do. That's great, dude. Let me help you out here. Look, I'm not a I have like no notoriety to playing white. I just want to get that out of the way. So this feedback could be very out of scope with what's expected. This card in white aggro, or this card, the way it's written, currently now does seem a little out of scope. Let me explain. There are a lot of cards that bounce. Hilder's a good example. 5 cost, 2 reduction, you got to pay 3. Mist can come down pretty cheap on an established board for 1, and you're bouncing pretty big targets. The way current things are written for bouncing, there seems to be a cutoff for cost 5 and lower spirits, and cost 6 or higher spirits, or 1 symbol or 2 symbol, whatever the case is. This card now reaches into a lot of the verbiage that we don't currently have or haven't had printed in a while. Select one of your opponent's spirits that costs 7 or fewer and return it to their hand. The fact it reads 7 now, it can be a bit of a threat, because with a lot of Magic cards and things that are coming out, the fact that it costs 1 to do so much, you can bounce every Star Dragon for the most part, right? Because they're usually 6 cost or higher. You're reaching into that. Hilder, you'd still have to pay a good amount. 3 cores, bounce a 1 symbol. Hey, what's going on? It's RPG Zeke here from the future doing this edit and realizing I totally messed up. So I'm gonna put a card on here. Valkyrie Hilder reads, select one of your opponent's spirits and return it to their hand. For some reason, I had it in my head that it was bounce 1 symbol back. My understanding and principle of the card has not changed. I already knew that going into it. I just kept saying 1 symbol this entire time for Hilder. So I'm going to put this here and kind of hope everybody forgives me for being on an assumption tangent as I was going through this. Point is, Hilder, even fully reduced, costs 3, which is still a good amount for bouncing anything to hand. Doesn't really matter if it's single or double. The point is that Hilder is not reduced down from like a 5 cost down to a 4 cost. So I just want to throw that out there so there's no confusion or pitchforks headed my way, and that's why I'm wearing this big dunce cap right now. But I wanted to make an edit because I'm going to keep saying the same thing, saying Hilder bounces a 1 symbol spirit. I know that is not true. I just want to put a video edit remark in here, and let's continue on with the video. Spirit, then it's targeting symbols, not the cost. The fact this is targeting cost and it's reaching past that deviation. If you look at BSS and you kind of flip through the cards, there is a cutoff with 5 costs or lower or 6 costs or higher, and then you have things you have to pay for that just kind of omit that circumstance. Dream Bomb, blah, 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 the other things. The reason this card becomes a problem is it's on a spirit. I can pay 1, I can bounce something, I can go in. The BP is not a threat. I get it can be easily removed. It's whatever. It's the fact it's in a very unique place. It's a 4 cost, can go all the way down to 1. It's bouncing 7 or fewer, essentially, cost-wise. So if we're going to do something to the green aggro situation, and we're going to mess with the white aggro a little bit, Valkyrie Mist probably has to get banned too in that retrospect. And I'm trying to look at this from a fair angle, but again, if you look at the newly printed cards versus the old stuff, I understand there's a power creep or a deviation in sets. I get it. But at the same time too, this one's a little too hot now with the way other things are currently being handled. If this card was bounce a cost 5 or fewer, it would be different. Like, I think we'd be okay. We'd all be in a happy median, not a big deal. Even if it was a 6 cost or fewer, I think we would still be talking about it, but not as much. The fact it's a 7 or fewer is what kind of tips it over and makes the card now kind of out of scope. So that's my feedback on Mist. Should get a banned. That's it. Moving on. Why does he keep taking the cards out of the sleeve? It's making me anxious. Well, you know what? At least you're paying attention. Next up, the deck that everybody's kind of screaming about, the other top tier deck, Mr. High Roll Pollon. What in the Hydra? It's, you know, I get it. I get it. We're gonna talk about that too, but not right now. Let's focus up. Look at me, okay? Look up here, huh? All right, that's great. Thanks, I appreciate your attention. All right, Pollon. Why this card? Let's go over it. Harp Princess Pollon. When summoned, reveal the 5 cards of your deck. Place a Nexus card that costs 4 or fewer from your revealed cards without paying its cost. Discard the remaining cards. The other thing it can do. At the start of the step, if this spirit's exhausted, you may exhaust one of your Nexuses to refresh the spirit and discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. I'm gonna say this right now. Whenever I have to take a breath, breathe in, breathe out a little bit, maybe rethink how I read the English words that are printed on these cards, because, you know, TCG players, do we ever fully read the card? The expectation here of Pollon is out of scope. What do I mean? When you play this card, the big turn to do is you drop Pollon, you're trying to pull Labyrinth. You're trying to get Labyrinth out early in that second turn if you're going second, because she's a 4 cost 2 reduction. So you're not playing her turn 1, but turn 2 if you're essentially the player going second, and you can drop this and pull Labyrinth out. That's great. That did a lot for you in just a win summon situation. And you got your stuff loaded into trash, which the current big Hydra decks, it's like a combo of blue and purple. So seeing a Beldegor in trash isn't bad either, right? The thing with this one is that it allows you to play it, right? And we're like, oh, but that card's been around for a while. That isn't the issue. Look, this card's whole thing is getting Hydra to come out as soon as possible with the high roll experience. You either get your hits, you bring Hydra down and you're swinging already pretty early, or you don't. It's a very, very good support card. Like, that's why it's on my ban list, right? Otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I do think Harp Pollon should get banned, and you know, that's my stance on it. Now, it's not because of the, oh, you summon, you get to do all this stuff and it's an effective card. It's out of scope of design. What do I mean by that? I got you. So, new card, just printed, the SSO5. Let me pull her out of the sleeve. I sleeved her up just for the video. No, I don't play with this card. Voiceless Diva. When summoned, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. You may add 1 Nexus card from the revealed cards to your hand, not putting a restriction on what it costs, but you have to put it to hand. If you add a card to your hand with this effect, discard a card. This card, design-wise, has restrictions in place. It's reveal 4 instead of 5. That's not the problem. I don't have any issue with Pollon revealing 5. Not a problem. If Pollon red, take that card, put it to hand, we wouldn't be talking about Pollon, because that would omit you to do potentially having to pay the cost to get that card down. But this allows you to set up right after she comes down to do something big the next turn. Diva is saying, hey, reveal those cards, put that card in hand. Great. Now you either have to think about paying it, which you could do. She's only a 3 cost 1 reduction, right? This is a 4 cost 2 reduction. They cost the same, fully reduced. One's just doing a lot more for you at the end of the day versus this one. And the astral situation for this, you're not trying to end the game with Diva. You crazy? No one's trying to swing with 5 cores on Diva trying to get in there and get that done turn 2 or turn 3. That is not what that card is doing, nor its purpose. Pollon enables the early high roll situation. That's what that comes down to. Okay, you get the card to hand. If Pollon was take it to hand like I was expressing, what then? Well, then it's the next card situation, right? So this card's been out since Blue got introduced. Mermaid Princess Lyrica. You may place a Nexus card from your hand without paying its cost. It also allows you to bump Nexuses up to their higher level at the expense of exhausting them. Again, there's a lot of checks and balances built in here. Diva allows you to search, put something to hand. Lyrica allows you to play for free and put a body down. Pollon does both for 1 card. And this is the X rare. You know what I mean? Like, this is the card you were like, oh yeah, I pulled a Lyrica. Everybody was joshing on Pollon for a bit, and then Pollon saw like a crazy market increase at like $40 a card at one point. No one's dumb about how good Pollon is. I think we're just not wanting to talk about it or admit it for whatever reason. I saw one good video, another video, and I commented on it, and I'm spacing on it because I don't have Windows open. I apologize, guys. I will link their video down below. They talk about Pollon. I'm in a situation where I think this card should get a ban because it's doing too much. There is no checks and balances here. What is the check or the balance? You could play it and maybe not hit a Nexus and all 4 Hydras go to the trash. That is great. I understand it. I'm also saying that's not a healthy mechanic. You know what I mean? It's too much for what the body does. So being able to drop that and just go, oh, Nexus, oh, turn 2. If you can't get rid of this Nexus, it is game over. It is going to be very difficult to deal with me. Cool, I get it. Awesome. Out of scope from a design perspective. Pollon is out of scope. Ban the card. That's my take. Lyrica, Diva, awesome cards. No issues. Moving on. And keep in mind, we're mainly trying to get Hydra, the deck type, to slow down a little bit. We're just going to jump right in and talk about this thing for a second. Labyrinth, right? Sapphire, great Sapphire Labyrinth. The whole card situation for this card being really good is for the Aberration type, which is what Hydra is and what a lot of the supporting characters are, is Aberrations. Now, Aberrations kind of got let off the chain a little bit with this card, and it's not for the ramp, right? I don't think anybody has an issue with a card that's there that allows you to ramp. We have Hurricane Highlands that allows you to ramp more than 1 core for a body based on the Gale number that it has. This is just, hey, take a core, as long as it's 3 or more when summoned, place a core into the void onto this Nexus. Okay, cool. That allows for some setup, some ramp, get some stuff out of your hand. That's cool. I like that. The thing I think a lot of us don't like is the other part for during your main step. When you summon a card with Ascend from your hand, you may exhaust this Nexus to summon it without paying its additional Ascend summoning cost. This card gets around the red tag for Ascend. Again, we've already talked about it. Cards that get around certain mechanics or just kind of don't make it a thing anymore, excuse me, as I drop that, typically are not good or healthy for consistency. There are some things that can be argued, like Digimon's a good stance on it, being able to, hyper digivolve or whatever you call it, from your low monster into your big monster, right? This here allows for the ramp on Aberration, but the fact you can exhaust it, drop a Hydra, you're not losing a body in the turn because now you're just playing it next to, these are not Aberrations, so don't take this too lightly. When you can just drop it next to another spirit, and the fact that Hydra came down, you still ramp a core on it and then move these cores over. The big problem I feel like with Labyrinth is just, it's something so simple, but I feel like if we had this printed differently, it wouldn't be such a big deal. If this didn't say during your main step, and this said during your attack step, we wouldn't be talking about this card as much. What's going on, guys? It's RPG Zeke here from the future, still editing this video. Really quick, another take on the Great Sapphire Labyrinth thing. I was talking about it to an individual from Main Deck Masters, Jacob, about how instead of it being printed in this attack step, if the overall situation for exhausting that Nexus and bringing down a red tag Ascend Spirit at no additional cost, is if the Nexus was also destroyed. Then we get into the other archetype with blue, which is destroying or exhausting essentially a Nexus to get something really valuable out of it. I think if Great Fire Sapphire was written like that, we would also be in a different situation, not really caring about it too much or really thinking about it. But the fact, again, it doesn't destroy itself. It's still there for next turn. It's used as a reduction. It helps you get something on board, and all it requires is an exhaustion. I like Main Deck Master's takeaway, which is, yes, if we did destroy the Nexus on top of exhausting, throwing that to trash and not having that reduction, whatever, I think that would have been a really good situation for Great Sapphire Labyrinth to keep it in scope. But that is not the future we are in. I'm just going to throw this little docket, this little comment right here, and we're going to move on to the rest of the video. Think about it. If you're allowed to summon, because that's what this Nexus does, you have to put 2 here to proc it, exhaust it, bring Hydra down. You're already in your attack. You can't redo cores or anything else, right? If it was something like during your attack step, you summon this card in place of, I don't know, something else, but Brutal Dino that just came out for BSS 05 is a good card for checks and balances when being summoned at some kind of special condition. Summoned from trash, you have to elect another spirit to destroy. Destroying your own spirits is kind of Purple's thing. It plays into the archetype. It's very friendly. It's whatever. I don't know at what point Blue got the nerve to be like, yeah, we're just Ascend tags. It don't matter none. The other thing too is like this can get played out of color. There was there's a deck I talk about that got like top 4 or something. It was a white Ascend crazy pile of cards, and it was able to ascend, bring Tiger down or whatever. You know, you just put 2 cores on, slip it, bring down Tiger, don't have to take a body, right? It removes the sacrificial cost of taking a body to make ascend happen. Again, I'm not saying I want an errata for that card where I want this to all of a sudden be the exact same conditions and then have this printed to be during your attack step. I just think during your attack step would slow it down a little bit, but I think the removing of the ascend tag is a little bit too much. And so now this is where I kind of get on the fence with some of these cards we're going to talk about. I don't know what to do with this, right? If we limit it to 1, it's, you know, it's a high roll situation. But if we limit it to 1 and ban Pollon, it's no longer a high roll situation, right? Then we're also going to get into situations where Diva or Lyrica, honest to God, might get played, right? That could be a situation or a future where that happens because you're trying to get a body down and place the Nexus. We already have that stuff in BSS 05. Caldera is an amazing designed card for blue-red, the archetype. I love that card so much. That is a very good card because it does so many good things for you and brings a body down. But again, you have to meet the conditions. Do you have it in trash? No. Do you have it in hand? Can you discard it? Can you do this? Pollon is just too much for no cost. And the fact she is so low and can be reduced that much, it's out of scope of design. Like it's just the matter of the fact is it's simple as that. This is the part I get a little stressed on with trying to make these decisions is with Labyrinth. I don't know from a logical or an emotional standpoint if getting this card out, like by banning it is what I mean, is gonna change the whole situation for the aberrations. I think it is, because then you lose the whole ramping aspect of it, but we also have to pay attention to the second tag, which is removing ascends on the main step. It's too powerful, right? It does too much, and the fact you're doing it in the main step, you can put cores on it and then change those over and do all this other stuff. My guy, too much. And out of color too, it would probably only get abused to other extents. Imagine this. We don't have Big Bang anymore. What might take its place to get more ascend targets down? Labyrinth, right? Even though Nova and Ira want targets to proc their effects, I'm just saying in general, like even Tiger becomes an issue then, because now you're just win summon doing all this other stuff, or any other cards that might have a win summon effect. Usually they want a target, so usually there's a check or balance there, like Prey Bird for Tokiwa and all this other stuff. Labyrinth can probably become like its own thing, where like there's probably the workings, if not somebody cooking in a kitchen somewhere, where they're making nothing but an ascend deck solely based on if you can pull Labyrinth. It's probably like Ascend targets galore with like low end ramp and a Labyrinth for like adhesive, the sticky stuff to kind of make it all come together. But I don't know. This is the card where I'm like, I know it's a problem and it's only going to become more of an issue with time. I feel like some great TCG player out there probably said that, right? So funny. Anyways, but yeah, so like I could see this getting banned. It sucks to say that. I can't really think of another option. Doing this weird errata limit to 1 you guys are wanting, I don't see it. Like I don't see it being healthy. I don't see it working out. People are really only going to cling to the old things, which again, whole reason I'm not talking about the old ban list is because of that mindset and the fact we're avoiding it and we're trying to bring in a fresh new experience. I think Labyrinth should get banned because I can't find a good substitute and I can't find a good reason for why it would stay. I think if we take Pollon out, it's slowed down a little bit, right? There could be that experience, but I think the end goal of just removing an Ascend tag is just too much. It's too much. So I would say ban Great Sapphire. Even saying that, I don't feel good about it. Like that is an emotional situation. I'm also like one of the worst Hydra players, guys. Like I don't play this deck. I tried practicing with this deck for a best of 1 situation. I did get emotional because of how much I sucked playing this deck. Like I'm not good with Hydra, so I'm not trying to do it out of any aspect of it. Side story, I also have not gotten steamrolled by Hydra. You know what I mean? Like I've had situations where like I did have an out. I did have all my answers, but I also try not to play against this deck all that much because I know it's either super over really quick and I can't really say I'm learning much or gaining anything out of that experience. So for that reason, if I tie in the other part of it's just like not fun to go against or it's just really weird, I would say ban it. Just ban Great Sapphire. And if we get something down the line that does the ramping for Aberrations, I'm more than okay with that. I think there's a world where Aberrations right now are about ramping to an extent. Because we just got Minoclops or something like that came out blue-red, and it's it's an Aberration, but it locks you down that says like, hey, if you use a magic card, like ramp a core onto me if your opponent does. Cool, the ramping of the core stuff can still thrive and exist. It's just the Ascend tag stuff. Like removing that situation to let one of the best cards for Ascend, Hydra, doesn't care if it ascended on top of a 3-cost, a 4-cost, an Aberration to proc any of its effects. This card, when this box set came out, it was already viewed as an outlier. What do you mean? I'll explain. We're going to talk about this card and we'll talk about what I would like to see done with it. When this spirit attacks, your opponent selects one of their spirits, discard a number of cards from the top of the opponent's deck equal to that spirit cost and destroy that spirit, raid 2. This guy can swing 3 times in a turn. This guy can pop your entire board, doesn't really care about any conditions. Ira is very much, has a condition. There is a condition on the card, and it specifies only single symbol spirits, right? And then you draw cards. I get it. The drawing, again, red drawing, welcome to red, you know? They're always going to draw. That shouldn't be the thing to take away here. It's the fact that it says 1 symbol spirit. So if you drop Ira cannot kill Hydra unless it swings at it. The when summoned is not enough to get rid of this card. So then it becomes another situation of, okay, do you have an out? Do you have an ice shield planted? Do you have a deadly balance? Can you bounce me? Can you do any of these things that cost a lot? Because for this guy swinging 3 times, he's looking to end game really quick. And the fact he can just wipe the board. You select one of your token spirits, great, cool, you don't mill anything. You still don't have a body to block. Okay, great, you want to mill the 8 target Namangard, mill yourself for 8, then draw 3 and ramp 3 cores, that's fine too, whatever. The fact he didn't have anything that's like your opponent selects one of their single symbol spirits would have slowed it down just a tad. The fact this guy has no checks and balances in that situation, it's a little too above the expectation of like where the card should be or where it should have been to begin with. The other thing too, it's a little weird for this guy is his cost versus his reduction. Again, Labyrinth, you played a couple of Aberrations, you can bring this guy down pretty fast and it's all in color. So it's not like you're fighting for too much at that point. Even if you don't have Labyrinth, like Hydra itself is still a threat if you're able to set up a couple of Nexuses. Nexuses for blue is a blue thing. I get it. They want to play around Nexuses and have all those things. That's the whole point of raid. Understood. The fact he's hitting you for 2, if it was like raid 2, but when he raids, it's only for 1 symbol, okay, a little bit better of an argument, right? We're then leaning on the aspect of what should have been expected. Something tied to a single symbol and not just the world's your oyster, Mr. Hydra. Pick whatever, have your opponent pick whatever card they want, and we will be sure that you can just mill and just go in with no issues. I don't want to see this card banned. Because again, if I take out Pollon and if I take out Labyrinth, I think there's a world where Hydra still exists. And like, even with it being really weird in terms of not having any checks and balances on itself, I wouldn't ban this card. Because then I think it becomes, he's slower played. We're not seeing him really fast. He's got to ascend. He's got to take another body away. Because the other thing too that's usually happened is Hydra comes down, you have a body, you have another body. Now if you're trying to do deadly double, clear up the other 2, and then now you're trying to deadly balance, if you're trying to dream bomb, whatever, there's still other setup that kind of gets in your way because you didn't take a body for the cost, right? You still have to pay the cost, you just don't have to worry about the ascend. 2 spirits on board versus the 1, a little different. And then there is a support card, which I didn't pull, but Tosagawa, the promo card, if Hydra slow played, I think that card does become a bigger problem. But again, I don't think so. If we get rid of Great Sapphire Labyrinth, if this card just goes away, he can't ramp, he can't assist with getting stuff out early, then he really does only become a support truly in the event of getting an ascend target out like Hydra. So I don't think Hydra needs to get banned. If Labyrinth and Pollon go away, oh, you're gutting the Aberration deck. I get it, but that's not, like, let's be honest, that's not why we're playing it. We're trying to high roll Pollon to get to Labyrinth, to slam the Hydra quickly without the opponent having a lot of cores, potentially not drawing a whole bunch, and now you're just ready to go to Pound Town. Like, that's not a way to be, in my opinion. So these are my bans for blue. Labyrinth, Pollon. Hydra's fine. Oh, excuse me. Back it up a little bit. We still got another card to talk about. And the reason I said my bans for blue are these 2 is because this card, this other card we're going to talk about, is a blue card. But it's getting played out of color, and it kind of just locks up stuff in a bad way that doesn't feel great. Let me explain. What's that card? Oh, you know, Seabed Lighthouse, right? Seabed, go figure, kind of crazy, right? Getting played in red, getting played in blue, getting played in green, getting played in like, you know, we're seeing a bunch of plays for it. And that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with controlling your player. It's just how good it does it. So let's read it. Let me take it out of the sleeve. Seabed Lighthouse. Your opponent cannot use magic cards in their hand that do not share a color with any of the symbols on their field. All your level 3 spirits gain 2000 BP. The second tag, not as scary. It's the during either attack step. So let me give you some examples. The thing that makes this so scary right now is you have a Seabed. It's doing its thing. I big banged. I'm in red. I played this, I ascend into this, I played this, imagine I ascended onto that too, doesn't matter. I now have this board state. Andromeda, as some of you have been emotionally damaged by this card so many times it hurts, has now removed your Nexuses. Nova swings, it's removed your spirits now, or whatever the case is, or Ira, you know, came down after your Nexus was removed, cleared your entire board. I'm gonna swing at you for free, by the way, unless you have a burst set, because Lighthouse locks you out of being able to have any retaliatory actions. Your opponent cannot use magic cards in their hand that do not share any color with any of the symbols on their field. If I remove your field, what are you gonna do? Your best bet is you could Swift if you're playing green. If you thought about them playing Lighthouse, you probably have a Leaf Wolf, you probably have a Scopal, you're probably ready to some extent to bring a Spirit on board. The whole point of the matter I'm saying for Lighthouse is it makes that situation gut-wrenching, it doesn't feel good, And I just think it's because of the current format situation and making it so that if you play these Ascend targets, you don't really want them back in hand because they might have taken a body from you, or you labyrinthed it out, right? The situation here is you can't retaliate. It takes all of your options away from you. It takes all your options away from you for the cost of 3/2 reduction. This isn't like an 8 cost Nexus. This isn't like a 6 cost 2 reduction Nexus. This isn't setting the other person back by a lot. You know, you play this out of color, you're only spending 3. That's not too bad to lock out your opponent during the attack step when you start swinging and things matter, right? So I want this card banned. This card, I think, only made me upset once. And like, it wasn't even anything crazy. I mean, I played it too. I had it in a sideboard and all that other stuff. It's just that good where you have to consider it an option both in and out of color. And that's why, like, Lighthouse just changing that rule on us, locking us out when you might be playing a deck type that just doesn't have Nexus removal. You know, a lot of our magics and our bursts are getting stale. We're all playing the same stuff for the most part. Dream Bomb, Thorn Prison, Deadly Balance, Burning Force, blah, 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 blah. BSSO5 is the first time in a while that a lot of other options have opened up for other colors, even with their mixed reduction, to start doing other things. And so the fact Lighthouse is still just like, if it's not represented, you can't use it. Even though we have dual symbol color spirits, I'm saying that these changes, in order for things to make sense harmoniously, kind of bringing a conclusion to the video, is all these bans have to happen at the same time. Seabed is not a one of. We ban Seabed. We get rid of Seabed. Okay, cool. We can't have some crazy other options that enable certain things. Pollon, Labyrinth, enablers, tools, gotta get them out. Makes that deck type way too crazy. And Strike Back. I'll get back to that in a second. The Big Bang Energy, enabler, crazy tool, way out of scope of design, right? Valkyrie, too good for where we've kind of found ourselves in certain costs or spirit restrictions. So like, she's hitting everything at this point. Like, you're not really playing that high or getting out of that field too much. The fact she's so cheap, can bounce the board like I was talking about for the 7 cost or fewer, it's too much of a reach. So she probably has to go too. And Strike Back, again, I want it gone just because of how it's written. It is written not like any other burst card, and it is out of scope from a design standpoint. And I am surprised I only recently learned about this. Otherwise, I would have been talking about it way sooner. That's just too crazy. You know, we have other options too, like there's Seed Bullet and all this other stuff. Written completely different compared to And Strike Back. So this one's got to go in my opinion. Big Bang, we talked about it. It was a whole first segment of the video. It's got to go in order for things to kind of level out. Harp Pollon, Labyrinth, got to go in my opinion. And then the last one on the ban list is Seabed Lighthouse. Yeah, it takes too much away for no real cost or no real effort, in my opinion, other than finally seeing one. And that's why, like, I hate this whole restricted to one thing. Get them out, guys. Just get them out. Ban them. Ban these cards. All right, guys, that is my video, my takeaways, my whys. Sorry this video ran for quite a bit. I wanted to focus on a few. I think we got through it. The next thing to kind of go over, and again, like, I'm not really going to talk about it, the ban list that's banned, leave it alone, don't touch it, just move on, we build on top of it instead. And then the talking about other cards or whatever the case is, if I didn't view it, and this is a me thing that I filtered, if I didn't view it as a logical response to something, I didn't see the need for it. So if it's an emotional response, I get it. You're allowed to have that opinion. It doesn't make my opinions any better than yours. I'm just trying to supply a little bit of a better reason. So I hope this helps. I hope we don't still keep playing. I'll see you guys around. Peace.